All right, welcome everyone. My name is Terrell Williams, and I serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion within the Office of Admission. I'm really excited about the opportunity to host tonight's panel, which is going to be focused on women at Sloan. We have a dynamic group of panelists as well as a moderator that's going to have you all, give us some insight on our particular processes, but also the experience at Sloan for those who identify as women. So now I want to transition it over to our student moderator for the evening, Sarah, who will share a brief introduction about herself and introduce our panelists for the evening. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the fabulous introduction. Very excited to have you all here for this webinar. As Terrell mentioned, my name is Sarah. I am, for a little bit of background, I'm a second-year MBA, and I'm currently the SVP of admissions for the Sloan Women in Management Club, also known as SWIM on campus. And just for a bit of background, what we try to do at SWIM is really foster community. We facilitate professional advancement and promote gender and racial equity for women and all underrepresented gender identities at Sloan. Prior to Sloan, I was in tech sales at a digital marketing software company. And this summer, I interned at Google in a strategy and operations role within their Google Ads business unit back in New York City. Yeah, and I would love to transition over to the fabulous panelists that we have today. We have Brittany, Lauren, Paula, and Lisbeth with us. I believe we have another slide with all of them on it. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, perfect. Lauren, if you could kind of kick us off, just introduce yourself. I'll have all the panelists introduce themselves as well. Just to brief background on what program you were in, your year, and what you were doing before and also after Sloan. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So yeah, my name is Lauren, and I graduated from the LGO program, which is the dual MBA and Masters of Engineering program. In 2023, so just last year, really. Time's flying by already. And within the LGO program, you can choose your master's. My master's was in computer science, or we call it Course 6 here at MIT. Prior to coming to Sloan, I was working in both manufacturing and in data science. I worked at Boeing, and I also got a master's in data science previously, so I had some data science experience. And then since coming to Sloan, I decided to go for more of a newer startup route. I'm actually working at a company called Rebuild Manufacturing, which was started by a bunch of Sloanies that also came from my operations program. So a focus on manufacturing and operations, but what I'm working on are some of our digital tech products in the space.
Thanks. And moving over to Brittany.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany. I'm an alumna of the Sloan Master of Business Analytics, also known as MBAN program, and I just graduated in 2023. Before coming to Sloan, I was actually finishing up my undergraduate degree at the University of Virginia. So I was studying statistics and minoring in data science, and I knew Sloan would be a perfect next step into industry. And since graduating, I've been working as a data scientist for Visa in Washington, D.C. So I see a few of you have put Washington, D.C. in the chat, so happy to see that. And I'll pass it off to Paula.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Hi, everyone. I am Paula. I graduated from the MBA program last year. I cannot believe that also 1 year has already passed by, and it's like right now hitting me. Amazing 2 years. And before doing the MBA program, I was working at a social startup back in Latin America. I am from Lima, Peru. And I was doing business development. But then I decided to come to MIT because I wanted to kind of do a career shift towards working in technology, and I was actually able to do that. So today I actually work as program manager for machine learning models, or for programs that include machine learning models for the global team at Uber, which includes different products across the platforms that we have all over the globe. So really excited to be here with you today, and hoping to contribute to your journey towards an MBA or any other of the programs that MIT Sloan has. And I will pass it to Lisbeth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisbeth Tirado. I graduated from the Master in Finance in 2023. It was an 18-month program. And before going to MIT, I was working as a fixed income and foreign exchange strategist at Bank of America. I am originally from Mexico, Mexico City, so I was working there. And now, after graduating from the Master in Finance, I'm working at Balyasny Asset Management, which is a hedge fund. I work mainly doing quantitative research and on the macro area. So I'm mostly focused on, again, on fixed income and rates products. And I'm very excited to be here today and happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you all so much. And as Terrell mentioned, we do have a couple pre-planned questions, and then we'll open it up at the end and have plenty of time for questions that the audience may have. I'm sure something that is on a lot of people's minds is career progression, career growth. So one question that I have for you all is, how has MIT Sloan helped you navigate your career options post program, whether it's MBA, MBAN, LGO, or MFin? And anyone can kind of jump in and take this.
I guess I can just start off a little bit. In my experience as part of the Master of Business Analytics, obviously, I think all Sloanies, we can say that, you know, there's a really big culture of Sloanies helping Sloanies. So that manifests in many ways, whether that's career fairs or speaker series. I know Sarah Swim does a lot of those as well. Those are all really good ways that the alumni network and the network at Sloan really helps in career development. There's also the Career Development Office. One program-specific resource that I found super helpful was the capstone and also the analytics lab that we had in our program. And so both of those were opportunities to actually work with sponsor companies. We had a range of companies from biotech to finance, fintech, consulting, and it was opportunities for students in small groups or in pairs to essentially work like an internship with these companies. A lot of them actually did have Sloan alumni running the projects and mentoring us. And those were some of the connections that I found most valuable. Personally, I was able to work with Macy's and also Visa. And obviously, I really enjoyed working with Visa. I liked the data that they were doing. I liked their techniques, and that definitely helped to influence where I am now. A lot of my classmates also found their current roles through these analytics lab and capstone opportunities. So I'd say Sloan really does a good job of setting you up and putting you in good position.
Thank you. I love those really specific examples of how, you know, classroom translate into real life. Thank you, Brittany. Anyone else want to add anything on that question?
I can go next. Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, Lauren, and then I saw you that you decided, so you can go after. Well, in my case, and actually kind of related to one of the questions that has just been asked through the Q&A, I actually come from a non-traditional MBA background because I studied clinical psychology. Like very, very different from the business world. And I was already transitioning before joining Sloan and the MBA, and kind of why I wanted to do the MBA, it's because I felt that I had already some experience working in business development. But again, I wanted to go to the tech world, and I felt that, you know, MIT Sloan was just that perfect complement that I needed on my resume, especially because of why MIT is known for. And so for me, I was able to see this career change and career progression as well. And kind of similar to what Brittany said, for me, I did my summer internship at Uber in the MBA program. As you probably know, we have 2 years and there's a summer internship between the first and the second year. And it was hard to do all of the recruiting and a lot of work, but I think it allowed me, like, the whole ecosystem, the alumni, the career development office, they really helped me in in understanding what I wanted to do next and what could be some possible options for me. And after a lot of effort doing recruiting, I was able to secure this summer internship in something related with machine learning, which is what I wanted to do. And then I got the full-time offer. And, the good part of that is that I didn't have to the recruitment process all over again for the second year or before graduation. So definitely that is something that I would say for career progression, do take advantage of everything that there is for everyone to leverage. And also especially the summer internship, which not in every case you will have the returning offer, but if there's that possibility, then like it really helps for the second year.
Really great advice, Paula. Thank you. And Lauren, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think it's quick. With the LGO program, it works like just a little bit differently, where we have set companies that we can intern with that are like the partner companies or the sponsor companies for our program. But similar to the experiences they talked about, like the fact that we already have these relationships within LGO and set up within Sloan, it's really helpful for us. We get matched to an internship. We have set companies, but we get to try out potentially something totally different. Like for me, I tried out a private equity internship, very different from my like more heavy quantitative background. So it was really great to have this very like safe, low risk opportunity to try out something new. And then obviously I ended up going to a company, well, not obviously, but this is actually a company that is one of the LGO sponsor companies. So again, that's just an area where there's a lot of these set up established MIT relationships, which was really helpful in the recruiting process.
Cool, thank you. And then shifting gears a little bit, we all on this panel identify as women. We were in some way related to SWIM, Sloan Women in Management, during our time on campus. So I'd love to hear from you guys kind of how you would describe the sense of community among women at Sloan and how it kind of impacted your experience within Sloan during your time at Sloan and also maybe beyond, if at all. Elizabeth, we haven't heard from you in a while, so I'll pass this over to you. Thank you.
Sure. So, well, first of all, I would say that MIT and MIT Sloan in particular are very special for really valuing diversity. So at all times, you can see that it is a community of very smart people, but also like people from very different backgrounds. And when you're part of this community, you can see that there's really a lot of opportunities to connect with people from different backgrounds, and there is a whole setup for you to engage in interest groups. So for example, in my case, I am a Latina and I am a woman, so I ended up being part of the Latino Graduate Student Association, and also I was involved in the graduate women at MIT community. So in general, I would say that it was very valuable to have access to these interest groups and to be able to participate in those. So I would say that it's just a great experience to be part of these groups. And if you're interested in being part of the leadership, there's always opportunities for people to join those. So really the opportunities are unlimited.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to add anything on this topic?
I can. So something that'll happen probably the first day that you come to Sloan is you'll be added to one of many WhatsApp chats, and they'll just keep expanding and multiplying over time. So there's tons of WhatsApp chats that get created. I feel like everyone creates one for almost every affinity group and also every niche interest you might have, like literally anything. And one that we had that was actually particularly active was just our like the Sloanie like women chat, and it was really nice to just have this chat where people could drop in surveys for a class they were working on, or ask where they should get their nails done, or say, hey, we have friends in town, what are some really good restaurant recommendations. So I think that there's just so many different like formal channels, but also lots of informal channels to bolster community, and I would say Sloan is very active in those, especially over chat.
Love it. And happy to report that that is a continuing tradition on campus. So, and Brittany, I think you also wanted to add something, or was it Paula? Sorry.
Yeah, sure, I can add. I have to agree 100% with what Lauren and Elizabeth already said. At Sloan and especially in MBAN program, I never once felt like underrepresented as a woman. I always felt like there was this network and no shortage of mentors and people, you could be friends or just take a lot of advice from. Of course, there was that Sloan Women in Management chat, a lot of free food there as well, I will add, as with all the Sloan programs. But I also remember some great events like Push for Parity. And even in the MBAN program itself, it's a pretty small cohort, 78 students, but 37% of us were women. And so, I do feel like that number is growing over time as well. And it's really inspiring to see that. And definitely, we are strong here at Sloan, and it's really nice to see. It's a great community.
Love it. Thank you. And I guess carrying these themes over a little bit more into the classroom, I wonder if any of you have sort of specific examples that illustrate maybe like how receptive faculty and, professors might be to adjusting their curriculum or their teaching methods to kind of include more diverse perspectives and voices and opinions. Does anyone have some sort of maybe anecdote on that topic?
I don't know if it's exactly, I mean, first of all, I would say that, of course, I think that, at least in my experience, I did feel that in almost every class, the professors would try to actually bring that diverse perspective, either through choosing business cases from different types of industries, or from inviting guest speakers from different kind of backgrounds, and representing diverse groups. So I do feel that overall, I felt that that was represented. Even since the very beginning, during the course semester, I was really lucky to have half of my professors being women and half of my professors being men, which was like a really, I would say, a bit of a surprise, but of course, like a positive surprise. That being said, I think at least in the MBA, we have a very a strong, like a lot of options that are especially dedicated to courses or classes that will deal as their main subject with diverse issues. There's one that I took, which was about like managing difficult conversations across differences and with a diverse with a diversity mindset, and it was one of my favorite classes with Professor Clara Blackburn. So if you even want to go deeper into those topics, you can. And then one thing that happened that I remind as an anecdote, that I recall as an anecdote, that was truly enlightening, I would say, is that we had one of these classes where we would have guest speakers every week. And by the 5th week, we realized that we had 3 guest speakers that were men and 2 that were women. And we ended up asking only to the women, how was their work-life balance? And so we reflected upon that, because we said like, oh, we are actually falling into this stereotype of only asking the women how they are dealing with their work-life balance, instead of bringing this question to everyone. And I think that the atmosphere, the environment, the community that we have allows us to bring those questions to the table and actually make a change. And, we did like kind of a class agreement that from there on, we would always try to think about our questions with a diverse perspective in mind as well. So that was something that I still, recall and use as an example, because it is, again, like the environment, the culture that allows you to bring these questions to the table and make a change from that. And I felt that in every class.
Love it. I really love the kind of idea of collective accountability and, having everyone in the class sort of agree to this new contract. I love it. Anyone else or any other thoughts on this topic before we move on to a couple other questions? Cool. Okay. And another question that I have is, this is obviously about gender identity, but these questions don't necessarily have to be, or your responses don't necessarily have to be. But what was the most unexpected challenge that you faced at Sloan, and maybe how did you overcome it? What resources did you use? Who did you lean on? Where did you go? And you can take a second to think about this.
I would say for me, I guess somewhat of a challenge for sure is the MBAN program is one of the smaller cohorts in all of Sloan. And so we tend to kind of be in our own little bubble, a little bit separated off from the rest of the Sloanies. And I think when it comes to having a greater identity at Sloan, being involved, that's something that, it doesn't obviously come naturally for a lot of the students. And so I think that was something that I really, knew I wanted to do, is just get involved in this amazing community, whether that's women or clubs, career-oriented clubs. And so most of my involvement was with the Council of MBAN as vice president, but also I was fortunate to be on the Sloan Senate. And I thought Sloan Senate it's essentially just like the student government, and a liaison between the Sloan students and then the administration. And we did a lot of fun planning of events. There were several subcommittees, so health and wellness committee that always planned, these little petting zoo fairs. And then there's also DEI committee. There's the academics committee. So there's also a bit of curriculum reform, whether that's for, greater equality in the education or just changing certain lessons or cases that we're studying. But I think just taking those steps to broaden your horizon while at Sloan is really important. And it's actually not very hard at all. All the Sloanies are extremely welcoming, whether that's swim or at career fairs. So, once you're at Sloan, just really make sure to take those steps to interact with people in the MBA, LGO, MFin. I've met so many great classmates who are really inspiring, great to hear about their career progression and their goals for the future. And so, yeah, it's once you're at Sloan, just make sure that you take those steps and really broaden your network, because you'll meet so many amazing, inspiring individuals.
Love it. Thanks, Brittany. Anyone else have something to share?
Yeah,
Great.
so in my case, I think the biggest challenge was the recruiting process. And the recruiting process, in my case, I was going to recruit for an internship program during the summer after the first year. And it was the first time I was recruiting in the US for a job in the US. So the process was challenging, not only because it's like a completely different setting, and in the US, for example, networking is very important. In my case, in Mexico, is not as relevant. So that was something I had to learn. And second, I was trying to enter a more quantitative field than what I made at my undergrad in which most people have math or computer science backgrounds. So I think that having access to connecting to alumni and also connecting to my fellow classmates really helped me in this process, because they could give me a lot of advice on what were the things that I had to learn, which were the courses that I had to attend, which people I had to talk to. And then at the end of the day, I could fill the knowledge gaps that I needed to get to the job where I am right now.
Cool. Thank you. And then finally, very last question before we open it up to audience questions is, sort of looking back on your experience. I know it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but looking back, when maybe you were applying or when you were starting your programs at Sloan, what do you wish you had known before starting your program? What piece of advice do you have for the people on this webinar who are looking to attend Sloan? And maybe we can start with Lauren, because I think we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, sure. I think what I wish I would have known, it's probably sound contrary to what you hear, is there's not actually that much pressure to be quote unquote networking all the time. I feel like I always went in, I was like, okay, MBAs, you're here to build a network. I need to network all the time. I need to be friends with everybody and meet all these people, which you definitely should do, but it's also can be really stressful and really exhausting. You can wear yourself down really fast. And I wish I had known that the Sloan network that you get is people in your class, it's the people outside of your class. It's really nothing to stress about, just like be a great person and help people out when you can. And like this network will be here for you. And what I really got out of the network, honestly, was a lot of just like cultural experiences and international travel opportunities. I didn't expect to have so many opportunities to go on treks to different countries, sometimes led by my classmates that were from that country. And that was such a unique experience. And I was really glad that I got to do so many of those treks.
I really appreciate that take, Lauren. I feel like, yeah, it can be hard to kind of bring yourself down to reality. And I also feel like, you know, echoing what everyone has said, the community here at Sloan, we are a smaller school. So I feel like the people that you're bound to meet, you will meet them eventually. So there's no rush, you know, networking like crazy in the first few weeks of school. And maybe let's move on to Paula. Any kind of advice or anything you wish you had known before?
Oh my God, I feel like this is a really hard question because there's so much that I could talk about. And I guess that, of course, you'll always come with an idea and expectations about how is it going to be. But I guess my advice would be just like try to be as open as you can during those 2 years to truly enjoy everything that might come that you didn't plan for. And also because I think like, I mean, I don't know anyone who had the experience that the MBA didn't live up to the expectations. I think like that's like a really good thing that happens. Like everyone is just overjoyed with how the experience is going. I cannot say how that goes in other schools, but it was definitely the experience for my class. And I know that it sounds overly positive, but like it's true. And I think a key part of that was that we all came with not low expectations, but with a really open mind to go ahead and do those things that might surprise us, right? Like what Lauren just said in terms of like going into treks or like, I don't know, experiencing something new. In my case, I knew that I wanted to go into deep like classes that could take me deeper into technology and machine learning and AI. But I was also very nervous because, of course, a lot of people had a background that which do they had already acquired knowledge regarding those topics. And I guess one advice that I would give is that even if you feel that you're not as prepared as your classmates, go to the classes and enroll in the classes that you want, because it is true that the community, it is a learning community where it's actually a good thing that other people know more than you, because that means that you can learn from them. And the I think like the humbleness and just like the openness to share knowledge is really inspiring. And again, like if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that would be like, I guess that those would be my 2 cents, like go with an open mind and also just try to learn as much as you can without any like preconceived ideas on what you can do or cannot do because of what other people already know.
Totally agree. Thank you for that. I love it. I always say that Sloanies are the best cheerleaders. So even if you feel like you're, you know, not adequate, there will always be people who are saying you're crazy and you should just go for it. So just do it. And Lisbeth, any kind of advice from your end?
Yeah, well, my advice is similar to what Paula just mentioned. So I think that in my case, at the start of the program, I was really nervous. Like I knew that I wanted to do a slight career shift into a more quantitative field, and I knew that like so many of my classmates already had that background, and I was afraid of taking like harder classes. At the end, I ended up doing it, and it wasn't that hard at the end of the day because, and I think a big part of that was just having the community. So like whenever things get very challenging, you can always rely on your classmates or on all of the resources that you have at MIT, like additional time with professors or with teacher assistants. So at the end of the day, there's always like the resources there for you to learn, and you just have to be open, and you just have to like want to achieve a bigger goal, and then the resources will be there. So I would say that you just need to know what you want and then just go for it.
Great. And then finally, Brittany, any kind of concluding advice for all of our listeners here or watchers?
Sure. Yeah, I would say one thing as well, and one of the reasons I chose Sloan is because of the such vibrant diversity within all of the programs. Even MBAN had 20 students from 24 different countries, and within the MBA, all the other programs, I noticed the same, and that's one of the things that really stood out to me about the school itself, and that I really got to love and really embrace. And I think coming in with an open mind and really getting to experience all these cultures was really so much fun. So definitely come in with an open mind. And touching on the whole point about fun, definitely tons of opportunities for that too, sponsored by Sloan. One of my favorites was the C functions. With the letter C, but also C as in SEA. At the beginning, I remember there was one yacht function hosted by Sloan where all students from different programs were able to go onto the Boston Harbor, kind of like a very big, nice, classy party ship. And that was kind of the kickoff event to the semester. Throughout, there's also other events like Sloan Gala, where a lot of students were able to go to this very fancy dance, essentially event, and then hosted at a mansion as well. And of course, along the way, there's Sloan Follies, which is a student-run comedy show. So just so many ways to really get involved and meet people from around the world. And I think coming with an open mind and just be ready to embrace those new experiences.
Cool. Thanks so much. And with that, I guess I'll pass it back to Terrell. Is that correct? For the questions from the chat.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we have some questions that we flagged from the chat that I can ask the moderator and the panelists to answer. So we have flagged a few. So the first question we have is, what does mentorship mean to you, and how have you found mentorship at Sloan? It's a pretty loaded question.
I
Sorry.
I can take this because I feel like the panelists have been doing a lot of talking. So I can talk very concretely about the mentorship program that we actually have through SWIM, which is basically a program where a second year MBA is partnered with a incoming first year MBA, and it kicks off over the summer. So it's just a very, friendly name to kind of introduce you to the Sloan community. It's really up to the mentors and the mentees how they want to structure this relationship. But I've remained really close friends with my mentor from last year, who is now graduated. And I hope to kind of foster that same relationship with my two mentees that I have this year, who are first years. And in terms of mentorship, what I really gain from it is just having some sort of sounding board that is removed from, your day-to-day classes, removed from your day-to-day worries, and just having someone else that's outside of what's currently occupying your mind to sort of talk to you about whatever it is that you need help with, and having sort of that third party voice to help you through anything that you'd like. And then it also is great that, you have this sort of mentor that you can look up to and ask for advice, and then vice versa in terms of being a mentor to other people. It's really rewarding, really gratifying. I think it's one of my favorite programs that we do through SWIM.
Thanks, Sarah. Another question we have is for those who are coming from non-traditional backgrounds. So can you speak to the academic workload at Sloan and how you've navigated that process, whether it was the course semester or all the electives that you have the opportunity to take?
I can take that. As I shared before, I did clinical psychology for undergrad. So when I arrived to the MBA, I knew that the course semester was going to be challenging for me because I've never taken any accounting class or econ class or data models and decisions class, which is one specific class that MIT Sloan has, at least for the MBA program, which is part of the course semester. I think that, first of all, everyone who I know that came from a diverse background, we all survived. So I think that, if you put the effort, of course, you'll be able to navigate through the classes. In my case, I actually loved it. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to come to MIT, because I wanted to have a course semester where I could have this data models and decisions class. And of course, it came from an interest, from a personal interest, of course, because I wanted to go to tech. But I would say that this was the best way for me to confirm if I actually wanted to go deeper into that world. At least that was the reality for me for DMD and for data models and decisions. And then I liked it so much, even though it was really, really challenging, that I decided to do the business analytics certificate as part of the MBA, for which I decided to take a lot of classes that were heavy on, again, like machine learning, generative AI, whatever, those things. So if you only want to use the course semester to go through those classes, you'll be able to. There are also tutors that you can reach out to. There's a lot of resources, study groups, the office hours. Like, honestly, I think everyone will be able to do it, and I wouldn't be that much concerned about it, because it also depends on how much, like how good you want to do it. If maybe like it's a class that doesn't matter that much to you, or like it does, it depends. But everyone will survive and will learn from those. But again, if you want to actually get a lot of knowledge from it, you can, no matter what your background is. You'll probably have to put a little bit more effort, but it's doable. And for me, again, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to come to MIT.
Thank you for sharing. So the next question we have is kind of a great segue from that previous question. So what was something at Sloan that lived up to your expectations and something that went beyond or surprised you while you were here?
I can take that one. And I think I would also recommend this for anyone with a non-traditional business background, but something that really exceeded my expectations at Sloan. This sounds nerdy, but it was corporate finance. I think it was like the best class I took at Sloan. I would recommend anyone, especially if you're not coming from a business background, take it. I wasn't expecting to really like any of the finance courses that I took in corporate finance, but it's really awesome. So I highly recommend that.
Yeah, similarly for me, it's also course related. In the MBAN, we were able to take machine learning, optimization courses, also hands-on deep learning, as well as some other technical courses like reinforcement learning. And really, obviously because it's MIT, a lot of these technologies are the state of the art. A lot of the methodologies we were using were actually formulated by one of our program's professors. He's the one who wrote the textbook. So, when you come to Sloan and MIT, this is the experience you're getting, is really the forefront of the industry. At least on the data science side, and then as well as the management side. On the management side, I really enjoyed some of the courses with some MBAs as well, like power and negotiation or consumer behavior. And a lot of the research coming out of those classes is also industry leading. So it's really inspiring. Every case study is really at the top, and it was a great experience.
Thank you both for sharing. So the next question we have is about pursuing a degree. So given that pursuing a specialization or joint degree program entails additional coursework, how does it impact the time available to participate in other activities? And how does one balance all the activities together at Sloan?
I can answer that one. So in my case, I really want to make the most of my time at MIT academically. So I enrolled in very hard courses in different parts of MIT and also Harvard. But I think that you can always find the time to comply with your academic like obligations and also be part of the community, and even if you want like be part of a sports team. So in my case, like I could do these hard courses, but and also I have the time, or I made the time to be the social chair of the Latino Graduate Student Association, and I was also part of the gymnastics team. So I think that it's really up to yourself. You have to think about what are your priorities for your time at MIT, and then you can always make time for what matters to you. So I think that you can get the most out of different worlds.
Awesome, awesome. A few more questions that I've identified that I think this is really good for our panel. So one of them, it says, did any of you participate in any prep programs such as MBA Launch through Forte? And also the second part of that question is, now that you have concluded your time at Sloan and can reflect on your time as a student, what programs would you recommend to support throughout the application process, whether it's internal at Sloan or any external programs you all may have participated in? No prep programs that anybody participated in, or anything that Sloan, the swim club did prior to your enrollment that you found that was very useful?
Well, I'm going to toot swim's horn for a second. I did not participate I actually did participate in Forte for a little bit, and then I actually stopped because I thought I was going to apply a year later, but that's a separate story. I found it very helpful for the 3 months that I was in it. So if you are interested in it, I would say go for it. But I can't really speak to it much more than that. In terms of swim and admissions, what we do, obviously, I'm one of the VPs of admissions for swim. A lot of what we're doing is interview prep sessions. We're doing a lot of outreach sessions, specifically for women and underrepresented gender identities for applicants who are interested in coming to Sloan. So last year, we started actually fleshing out a more robust program for interview prep sessions. So if you are invited to an interview, you will be reached out to by either me or someone else on swim with an invitation to kind of practice and have sort of like an ask me anything style session with one of the swim members to really help you get comfortable with, number one, seeing yourself at Sloan, and also getting you prepped specifically for the interview process. That's just one thing that we do in admissions, along with other events, obviously helping out Terrell and the rest of the admissions team for on-site visits, lots of happenings. And we're also always open to answer any questions if you guys have them.
Thanks, Sarah. Another follow-up question. This was mentioned earlier, the Push for Parity event. So someone asked, could you all speak more to that event and the impact or reach it has amongst women and allies at Sloan? And they said they Googled it and it sounds awesome, but they want to know more information about it if they can.
Yeah, so I was actually not on the organizing committee, so I don't want to misspeak, but it is a really, really awesome event. It's evolved a lot over the years, but it has existed for a long time in some sort of version. This year, I believe it spanned 3 weeks of nonstop events, which then culminated in a big swim hosted party that rang in at midnight of International Women's Day, I think, which was just really nice and symbolic. Events ranged from everything from, events around like fertility conversations, double income households, how to kind of break gender stereotypes in various different industries. We had a session on women in sports and sports analytics. And then we also had, evening events that were like dinner groups with women faculty, which was also really special. So small group dinners with some of our amazing rockstar faculty who are also women. So really cool range of events. They change every year. We have a couple events that do really well every year, so we want to try and keep them. But I do think it's going to be a similar format this year in February, another sort of 3-week, 2-week event with lots of different programming and programming that's also open to and approachable for everyone, not just women.
Thanks, Sarah. Looking forward to it. So the last question I have before we transition to our wrap up is, did you all take any classes outside of Sloan? If so, why? And how was your experience with the registration process, whether it was at the Institute or the class that you can take within the graduate schools within the Boston area?
I can answer that one. So I ended up taking many classes outside Sloan. I took a couple classes in Harvard, in the PhD Econ department, and in like Harvard Kennedy School. And the registration process wasn't hard at all. And to get there, it was really easy. I had a bike, so I would just bike there. It took me about 20 minutes to bike there. So yeah, it was pretty easy. And like even inside MIT, I took courses outside Sloan as well in the course 6 in computer science and also in the PhD in economics. Again, I would say that sometimes it was even easier to register for these courses than to register for courses at Sloan, just because there is so much demand for courses at Sloan that you have to sometimes bid for the courses and it's hard to get in. Whereas like these other courses, they were like just bigger classes in the case of the computer science department, or in the PhD in econ classes, it was just very small classes, so and like very demand for people to join those classes. So really there is an ample opportunity for students to go and study in other parts. And it was a great experience as well.